All right, so Cambridge 19 reading test 1 passage 2. So the pirates of the ancient Mediterranean. In the first and second millennia BCE, pirates sailed around the Mediterranean, attacking ships and avoiding pursuers. So we've got what we got here is a typical, very very typical passage 2. Um, I will be using English. I'll be speaking English because, specifically because, right from the passage 2 and passage all the way to passage 3, you are expected to have a at least B2 level of English, reading skills at least, in order to be able to do well and deal with passage 2 and 3. While with passage 1, which is a lot easier, you might have got away with just B1 or like late A2 even. Yeah, pretty much, because that was quite easy. Now, right from the passage 2, things get serious. So you feel the difference between passage 1 and passage 2 immediately. Like, it's not a very gradual progression. I would say passage 2 is significantly more challenging than passage 1. For one reason, you are now introduced to new question types. So a typical passage 2 would include, I'm not saying all of them, but very often. So what you commonly see in passage 2, sometimes in passage 3 also, in this regard, in this sense, passage 2 and passage 3 are very similar. So what you tend to see is matching information, which is which paragraph contains the following information question. If any one of you may not know the titles of the questions, the question types. So this is a very typical, very common question type, and you are expected to do well in these question types if you want to score a high. If you want to score high on your reading, especially in passage 2. And then you got a typical pick from a list consisting of 5 options, 2 of which are only correct. We've got one more of this, and then a typical summary completion. Now, careful here, because it is not a sentence completion now, it is a summary completion, which is different, but in a few ways. So we will talk about that a little bit later. So let's get into it. So when it comes to strategy game plan, for me, it's drastically different. For passage 2 and 3, it's drastically different from passage 1. Specifically because in passage 2 and 3, you got 3 question types. 3. Very rarely 2 and 4. So more often than not, it's 3. While in passage 1, you tend to get 2 question types: true, false, not given, and sentence completion. So what's interesting about this fact is that you can actually implement multitasking when dealing with passages 2 and 3. So what multitasking gives you, what advantage it gives you, is that you actually save a little bit of time, because you don't have to reread the same piece of text, the same paragraph for two different question types, because you deal with these with a range of question types at the same time as they occur. All right, so let me show you how multitasking actually works. By the way, if you didn't know about multitasking and you used to work in a completely different manner, but that works for you, I think you should stick to it. Like whatever works for you, good for you. Yeah. I mean, you shouldn't change your strategy, your game plan, just because somebody else does it differently. Again, as long as it works for you, as long as you feel comfortable doing the way you've been doing, absolutely stick to it. But if not, you can give it a shot. So let's see. So basically, multitasking is about focusing on a range of all of basically question types you're provided with at the same time, which sounds a little bit more challenging, and it really is, but it's got its advantages. So let's see. I always start with my central question type. I call it central because it's the most important one. So which part contains the following information? Yes, that means you may use any letter more than once. So that gives us actually that tells us that we have to be careful. We have to be more attentive when reading paragraphs, because there's a chance that some of these may repeat. Some of the points here may repeat in the same paragraph. All right, so let's see. Reference to the denial. See, you're already facing a more advanced level of vocabulary than passage 1. In passage 1, denial. So you have to know the word denial. By the way, if you are in an exam condition, under exam conditions, if you're taking your exam and you don't have a chance to look up the word in the dictionary, I advise that you skip this question completely, because now that you don't know a certain word, which is very important, which is a keyword here, there's absolutely no chance you would find this other than just guessing, random guessing. So if you happen to not know the word denial, forget about it. Skip it, okay? So to a denial of involvement in piracy. Denial means they denied it, basically. They said they didn't do it. All right? Details. All right. I immediately see the details are important. Of how a campaign to eradicate. All right, so eradicate means get rid of, eliminate completely. Piracy was carried out. So details and something about eradication. I decided to highlight eradicate instead of campaign because for me, I know that I can recognize or catch the word eradicate or something that has to do with eradication much more easily, maybe more quickly than the word campaign. It's just a gut feeling for me. A mention of circumstances. Okay, circumstances, in which states in the ancient world. Okay, the easiest detail here is the ancient world, which is the keyword now, would make use of pirates. So we need ancient world. All right. A reference to how people today commonly view pirates. So it's a modern assumption about what pirates are. An explanation of how some people were encouraged not to return to piracy. So they were basically told not to do it, and they had a motivation not to. Like some people maybe. A mention of the need for many sailing vessels. Vessels means ships. Sailing ships to stay relatively close close. So we need to catch the word close. I mean the synonym for something being close to a land. All right, so these are our keywords that we're going to focus on, and with these in mind, we have to kind of like memorize them. It's much easier to deal with multitasking if you are doing CDI on a computer, IELTS, if you're taking the IELTS on a computer rather than on a paper. So I'm gonna have to look at the ancient world here. Two of the following statements does the writer make about the inhabitants of Mediterranean region? I'm not going to highlight Mediterranean region because the whole passage is about Mediterranean. There's no point. I would probably look out for something from here, like inhabitants, ancient world. Maybe stolen vessels might be a catch for me, like authorities. All right. So what about this one? Greece. Okay, Greece has to be a very good signal word for me. So I'm gonna rely on that. And also Iliad and Odyssey would be an important signal words for me. Important signal words for me, yeah, certainly. And for summary completion, I'm just gonna take a look at this Rome. So I'm just gonna fixate my vision, my attention onto the word Rome. So whenever Rome occurs, I know that I'm very close to this question type. So yeah, now let's get to work with the passage. When one mentions pirates, an image springs to most people's minds, of a crew of misfits, daredevils, and adventurers in the command of a tall sailing ship in the Caribbean Sea. So this is our common perception. That's what we people tend to view pirates like. Yet, so there's a contrast. Yet from the first to the third millennium BCE, thousands of years before these swashbucklers began spreading fear across the Caribbean, pirates prowled the Mediterranean, raiding merchant ships and threatening vital trade routes. However, despite all efforts and the might of various ancient states, piracy couldn't be stopped. It couldn't be stopped. All right, so they were fighting, they were threatening. The situation remained unchanged, so nothing changed actually for thousands of years. Only now, at this point, it did change. The situation changed when the pirates directly threatened the interests of ancient Rome. So we've got ancient Rome here. Did the Roman Republic organize a massive fleet to eliminate piracy? So eliminate means eradicate. So and under the command of Roman General Pompey, Rome eradicated piracy, transforming Mediterranean into Mare Nostrum, RC. So, so the way multitasking for me works is that I read the paragraph, one paragraph, and once I'm done with the paragraph, once I'm done reading, by the way, as you can see, I read very slowly and very attentively so that I don't miss anything, and I highlight certain keywords on my way. And once I'm done reading, I first take a look at my central question type, which is matching information here. The reason for that is that I have to first deal with what's more likely to be missed. All right? I'm going to say that again. I do first what's more likely to be missed. And matching information questions are more likely to be missed and forgotten maybe because they are just less obvious. They're less just higher chance of you forgetting or missing them, so you have to deal with them first. A denial. So there was no denial. eradicate. Details of a campaign to eradicate. So I saw the word eradicate, but I don't want to rush with my conclusions because there was a campaign, but there were no details. I didn't see any details. Like, I didn't see how the General Pompey got rid of piracy. They just said they did, but not explain how. But we need details. See, it's very important. A mention of circumstances. Ancient world would make use of pirates. Um, there were no circumstances or ancient world or make use of pirates. Reference to how people today commonly view pirates. Yeah, we do have this. This one is actually very easy. This has to be question 17 has to be one of the easiest questions here in passage 2, which I believe a lot of B2 students, most of the B2 students have to be able to find it. All right, so let's see. Maybe there's one more. Some people encourage not to return. Nope. Sailing vessels close to land. Nope. Nothing about that. What about these? I don't see any inhabitants, Mediterranean region. No stolen vessels. Nothing that would look like this. Nothing about Greece. But we do have Rome, though. So let's see. Piracy was an issue in ancient Rome. That Rome had to deal with, but it also brought some benefits. So I didn't see anything about benefits. So I don't feel like I'm there yet. For example, pirates supplied slaves. Nothing about slaves again. So nothing about slaves. So I'm pretty sure that I'm not there yet. So we need slaves in order to get to the answer. Yeah, I know it how it sounds. However, attacks on vessels. All right, so let's see. Although piracy in the Mediterranean is first recorded in ancient Egypt, so now we have got ancient world, which might be actually a clue for this. By the way, a fun fact or important fact. You don't often, I'm not saying always, like the word always never works for IELTS, because there are always exceptions. So very often you don't get to see empty paragraphs. What I mean by empty is that most paragraphs tend to have something, some information, some important information in them. There's a very high chance of seeing one or two or three answers or questions mentioned in each paragraph. Most likely. I'm not saying never. Of course, there are certain paragraphs that are normally short, especially short paragraphs, that may contain no information related to questions, but that doesn't happen too often. So let's get back to work. Although piracy in the Mediterranean is first recorded in ancient Egypt during the reign of Pharaoh Amenhotep, it's reasonable to assume, okay, there's a reason to assume that it predated, right? Predated this powerful civilization. This is partly due to the great importance that Mediterranean held at this time, and partly due to its geography. So there's something about geography, there's something about the importance of Mediterranean. While the Mediterranean region is predominantly, that means most commonly, mostly, fertile, some parts are rugged and hilly, even mountainous. I said the correct pronunciation is mountainous. In the ancient times, alright, so we've got ancient world. I also see some circumstances, but let's keep on reading. In the ancient times, the inhabitants of these areas. So, all right, we got inhabitants. So I'm pretty sure that we've got these two over here, because I was paying attention to keywords. This is how it works, basically. Guys, not a rocket science, guys, not a rocket science. In the ancient times, the inhabitants of these areas relied heavily on marine resources. Marine resources. So they relied on marine resources, including fish and salt. All right, most people had their own boats, possessed good seafaring skills, unsurpassed knowledge of the local coastline, so they knew the area well and routes. Thus, it's not surprising that during hardships these men turned to piracy. Alright, so I'm gonna stop there. I will stop there because, first of all, I've just read too much information, and I don't want to burden my short-term memory because all the paragraph is too big to be read at once. I can't do that. So I tend to stop whenever I feel like I'm full. Okay, all right, you know what I'm saying. And another thing is that I feel like I caught something. I feel like I got something from the questions, so I don't want to miss my chance to get it. So let's see. They often used stolen vessels. Nothing about stolen vessels. They managed to escape capture by authorities. Nothing again about this. They paid for information. They depended more on the sea. All right, depend means rely on. Depend on, rely on. We've got our first paraphrase here. See, I'm not gonna be writing. I'm not gonna be wasting my time on writing the paraphrase table. You can do that yourself. So depend on, rely on. So we got rely on here, somewhere here. Yeah, heavily rely on. For their livelihood, which is they eat fish and salt. A livelihood. Then on farming, yeah. So that's D. They stored many of the goods taken in pirate attacks in coves along the. Alright, so I didn't see anything mentioned about A, B, C, or E. So I feel like I've got something over here at the bottom of the paragraph. So I'm gonna keep on reading now. But just in case, I'm just gonna take my time to see if anything from here occurs here. Denial, there's nothing about denial. Details of campaign, nope. Circumstances, a mention of circumstances in which states in the ancient world would make of. By the way, states, they're like talking about authorities, I guess, the governments in the ancient world would make use of pirates. So how pirates could be useful to them? Is it like? Now I'm not totally convinced. Just gonna do it like this so I don't get bothered by the look of it. An explanation of how some people were encouraged not to return. No, sailing vessels to stay relatively close. Nah. So I don't see anything from here. Maybe 16, but very, very not convincing enough. Definitely D. I'm pretty sure about that one. Alright, so again, nothing about Greece, nothing about Rome. So far, so good. Geography itself further benefited the pirates with the numerous coves along the coast, providing places for them to hide their boats. Okay, we've got coves, we've got place for hiding boats and strike undetected. So before the invention of ocean-going caravels in the 15th century, ships couldn't easily cross long distances over open water. So they stored many of the goods taken in pirate attacks in coves along the coastline. So did they store many of the goods? So they did hide their boats. I don't see any keywords though. Like I can see they mentioned coves and the coastlines, but I don't see the exact keywords, so I'm a bit unsure about this, uncertain. Mm. By the way, they did talk about knowing the area very well. Maybe I missed B actually. Thus, in ancient world, most were restricted to a few very well-known navigable routes that followed the coastline. Caught in a trap, a slow merchant ship laden with goods, had no other option but to surrender. Surrender means to give up, to resign. In addition, knowledge of the local area. All right, so knowledge of the area, we got this here. They knew the area. Helped pirates to avoid, to escape. Yeah, we got the paraphrase now. Avoid retaliation, which means capture once a state fleet arrived. Yeah, it's B now. See what happened right now? This is a very good example of how certain information might be very tempting to pick because you feel like you are on it, you are onto something, but you don't have the exact proof, the evidence in a sense of keywords, in a form of keywords, in a form of paraphrase. So unless you get to find the paraphrase, you still feel like you're not sure about this. So this is a very good sign. This is a very good strategy to stick to. You don't pick options just because you feel like it's an answer. You pick them because you found the evidence. You got the evidence. All right, which is a huge, which is huge mistake. A huge mistake. A very common mistake that a lot of candidates tend to make. They don't really, they don't actually rely on the evidence, the paraphrase. So they mostly tend to rely on their assumptions and feelings. Like they feel like it's the answer, so they just take it as it is. When in fact there was no paraphrase, no evidence. All right, so we got escape equals avoid. We've got local area, knowledge of local area. Is that enough? Yeah, pretty much. To me, it is. All right, so we've got this too. So nothing about denial, details of a campaign, nah, circumstances. Could be some people not to return sailing vessels close to, nah. Maybe it's something about close to land, being close to land. Like they talked about numerous coves along the, oh, so they did talk about places along the coastline, which feels like this is something about being close to land. So maybe that's 19. But I'm going to put a question mark here because I'm not totally convinced again. Like if I don't have any other better options, if I don't get to see any better options, I'm just going to stick to B for 19 here. So again, my initial assumption is that close to land should have been paraphrased by coastline. Not very convincing evidence, but so far this is the only one. So yeah, let's keep on reading. Nothing about Greece, nothing about Rome, I guess. Yeah, let's just keep reading. One should also add that it was not unknown in the first and second millennia BCE for governments to resort to pirate services. All right, so that's governments, states, services, pirate services, which means make use of pirates. So pirates were useful to the government, especially during wartime. employing their skills and numbers against their opponents. Yeah, that's totally 100% 16. That's C. 100%. Circumstances equals wartime. Wartime. Ancient world, first, second millennium BCE. Make use of their services. States, governments. We've got everything here. We've got 100% paraphrase. Yeah. So now we're done with 16 and 17. Pirate fleet would serve in the first wave of attack, preparing the way for the navy. Some of the regions were known for providing safe harbors to pirates, who in return boosted the local economy. All right. The first known record. Oh, that was C. That was it. That was the only paragraph. All right. The first known record of a named group Mediterranean pirates made during the rule of ancient Egyptian pharaoh was in Amarna letters. These were extracts of diplomatic correspondence between the pharaoh and his allies, and covered many pressing issues, including piracy. All right. It seems that pharaoh was troubled by two distinct pirate groups, Lucca and Shedden. Despite the Egyptian fleet's best efforts, the pirates continued to cause substantial disruption to the regional commerce. All right. In the letters, the king, Alashia, rejected his claims of a connection. So rejected means denied. The claims about the connection, being connected, like involvement means connection. With Lucca, a pirate group of pirates, piracy. So yeah, that's D. That's 14 right there. See what I'm saying? You absolutely have to understand what denial means in order to be able to tell that it's right from here, rejected. So you have to understand the word reject. You have to understand the word denial. And be able to react quickly to this connection. See? That's the only way. I don't see anything else, so I'm just going to keep on reading. The ancient Greek world's experience of piracy was different from that of Egyptian rulers. It was different. So we got ancient Greece now. So let's focus on this. While Egypt's power was land-based, the ancient Greeks relied on Mediterranean in almost all aspects of life, from trade to warfare. So they did rely on water. Interestingly, in his works, the Iliad and Odyssey, the ancient Greek writer Homer not only condones but praises the lifestyle and actions of pirates. Says good things about them. The opinion remained unchanged, the positive opinion, in the following centuries. All right, let me just stop there. The state estimated the very few people were involved. Nah, I didn't see anything about that. Attitudes towards piracy. So we got some attitudes like positive opinion towards piracy changed shortly after the Iliad and Odyssey were written. Nope. Actually, the opposite is true. He not only condones, but he praises, and the opinion remained unchanged. So, nope, it didn't change. So we can get rid of B. It's not B, 100%. The important officials, government, were known to occasionally take part in piracy. Every citizen regarded pirate attacks as unacceptable. A favorable view of piracy is evident in certain Greek texts. Yes, exactly. It's E. Favorable view means positive view. favorable. So you have to know the word favorable, which I would expect from C1 students, but not from B2 students. So as I said earlier, passage 2 and passage 3 are not for B1, B2 students. They're mostly made for C1, C2 students. Yeah, of course there are certain easier questions that B2, even B1 students can deal with, but there aren't that many. Not that many. So here's a good example. You have to understand the word favorable. You have to know that. You have to know that it has something to do with positive. And you have to know the word praise. See? You have to know both of these words in order to make a connection. Quick connection, preferably. So it's E. So let's keep on reading. The ancient Greek historian, for instance, glorified, which is, again, saying something good about someone, glorified pirates' daring attacks on ships or even cities. For Greeks, piracy was a part of everyday life. Even high-ranking members of the state. All right, okay, I got this. High-ranking members of the state, which is government officials, important officials. So they occasionally take part, not beyond engaging in such activities. So they did engage. They were not beyond engaging. They did engage, which means they did engage. They engaged in these activities, took part. They were not beyond. So that's C and E. All right, we're done with this. All right, so according to the Greek orator Demosthenes, I'm not sure how to pronounce that name. Athenian ambassadors made a detour from their official travel to capture a ship sailing from Egypt, taking the wealth found on board for themselves. The Greeks' liberal approach towards piracy doesn't mean that they always tolerated it, but attempts to curtail piracy were hampered, kind of like slowed down, stopped even, by the large number of pirates operating in the Mediterranean. So do we have anything from here? Details of campaign. Some people encourage not to. Not that I'm. Not so much actually. So we've got. All right. Look, we got 2 more paragraphs, and we've got 3 more statements, which means these 3 are either in this 2, or we missed one, which is probably 19. So let's see. Remember, we also have summary completion. We're going to deal with that once we see Rome. The rising power of ancient Rome, here we go, required the Roman Republic to deal with piracy in the Mediterranean. While piracy was a serious issue, Rome profited greatly. So profited means they benefited. Remember, we got benefits. So now we need slaves. Pirate raids provided a steady source of slaves. We got slaves. All right, I feel like we are close to 24. We're close. However, so there has to be something bad about this. Essential for Rome's agriculture. But, all right, we got however here. Attacks on vessels transporting. So vessels, ships, were transporting something. So this has to be goods or produce that they were transporting, like wool or gold. But this arrangement couldn't work only while the pirates left the Roman interests alone. Pirate attacks, we got the text here, on grain ships. So ships means vessels. So grain means, grain is kind of like a produce, a farming, agricultural good. These are agricultural, an example of agricultural goods. So ships were carrying grain. So grain ships means ships carrying grain. So they were transporting grain. Grain is the key. which were essential to Roman citizens. Here you have to understand the word ships and vessels. So these two are equal. They are like you put them you put these two in a paraphrase table. All right. So they are equal in meaning. So 25 resulted in calls for something. Calls means there's a need for something. They were urged to do something. They were encouraged to do something. So pirates responsible call for something, for doing something maybe. Who knows? Um, angry voices. So angry voices means calls. Yeah, we got calls here. Angry voices. So I feel like the answer is somewhere here. Led to angry voices to Senate, which is the government, demanding for punishment. Yeah, punishment is the answer. They were calls for punishment for the pirates responsible. Yeah, pirates responsible means culprits. Culprits. So the answer is punishment. 26. Nevertheless, piracy continued, with some pirates demanding a something. So there's a singular noun for the return. So they demanded something for the return. Rome, however, did nothing further encouraging piracy. Alright, it continued. By the 1st century BCE, emboldened pirates kidnapped prominent Roman dignitaries. Dignitaries means officials. Asking for a large ransom to be paid. So they captured, which means kidnapped. Officials means dignitaries. Demanding, asking for, demanding. Now is the only singular noun here is a ransom, which, by the way, means a sum of money, usually a large sum of money, that needs to be paid in order to save the kidnapped person. So you exchange the person and the money, and the money is called ransom. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Now we're done with these with Rome. I don't think we've got anything from here though. Details of how a campaign to eradicate was. Oh, we did have a campaign here to eradicate. Did we? Details of campaign. Alright, so question 15 is a little bit tricky. So I'm pretty sure that 19 is B. Coastline, coastal land. Now I'm debating between 15 and 18. And 15 could be F actually, but I don't have the evidence yet. By now, Rome was well aware that pirates had outlived their usefulness. Okay. The time had come for concerted action. In 67 BC, a new we've got law, legislation. So that might be a campaign. Granted Pompey vast funds to combat, to fight, eradicate Mediterranean menace. Menace means threat. Taking personal command, Pompey divided the entire Mediterranean into 13 districts, assigning a fleet and commander to each. After cleansing one district, cleansing here means eradicating, of pirates, fleet joined another. Alright, so these are the details. So they're explaining. So this is 100% 15 now. Now I'm calm. Now I'm content because I found the evidence. I was thinking about F, but I didn't see any evidence there. I didn't see any paraphrase. So I was a bit hesitant. Now I know. The process continued until the entire Mediterranean was free of pirates. Although thousands of pirates died at the hands of troops, as a long-term solution to the problem, many more were offered land. So pirates were given land in fertile areas so they could do some farming, instead of piracy. Instead of a marine maritime menace, instead of doing piracy, Rome got productive farmers that further boosted its economy. So this is the motivation not to commit piracy crimes. So they were encouraged not to return to piracy. So as you can see, that's how you deal with passage 2. And I would say the same thing with the works with passage 3, basically. This is how multitasking works. This is how I don't know, these question types work. So do what I just did and you're good to go.